Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the FanScription podcast. I am Walter Benasiak here with the other Walker brother, Doug, this week.
Usually we have Rob would love that because he's usually called the other guy or the other brother, so he would love that, man.
Right. Well, he's usually on here, joins me on the podcast. So we got you on here exclusively this time. We're talking about two FanScription episodes that came out this past month. The first one was the FanScription editorial that I did on why I think Bogus Journey is much better than Excellent Adventure, talking about Bill and Ted, of course, and I have the shirt to prove it. Sure. And we're also talking about Doug's standard FanScription episode about what if The Incredibles got older. And
I'm wearing the appropriate shirt too, Tom and Jerry.
Jerry, yes.
It's clearly a connection.
Obviously. So we'll be talking about Incredibles 2 and our thoughts on the original movie, Doug's changes and everything, and that's what we'll go into first. And afterwards, we'll talk about Bill and Ted 2, and we'll also give our thoughts on the new movie, which I just watched, Bill and Ted Face the Music. Doug already has a review up on here if you haven't seen that on the Channel Awesome channel. But first, let's talk about Disney. That's our bread and butter here at Channel Awesome. about Incredibles 2. So let's talk about the movie first before we go into the changes that you made, Doug. When you first saw this, what were your thoughts on it? And just give me your general opinion of the movie.
When I first saw the trailer, I was kind of ready to dislike it because, like a lot of people, I did want to see them get older. And even like the stuff, oh, now they're illegal again. You know, it's like going right back to square one, and I hate that in sequels. But I think the characters were still so strong, and the comedy, it looked incredible as well, and part of the title, I guess. That I actually really liked it, surprisingly. I thought the only weak point was the villain, you know, and at the surprise villain again, which I just felt like wasn't... It hadn't been done a million times in Disney films, you know, in recent Disney films, but for the most part, I actually thought it was pretty decent, though, like, a lot of folks, I want to see them get older, but I get why they keep them younger, too. Like, that's part of the charm. It's like, well, it's animation. They don't have to grow up, which I understand. It's like growing up Bart or Lisa. You know, it's like, that's great. But at the same time, it's like, it might be nice to see what they'd be like older now, too. They've been around so long. So, I don't know. It's a give and take.
Right. It was 14 years, I think, after the first
Something
movie.
Like that, yeah. I was almost going to do it, like, in real time, like, have it, like, 14 years later. And then I looked at how old everybody would be, and I'd just be like, that's not a variety, so I just did it like 5 years.
Sure. I think that was the biggest kind of disconnect, is that because it wasn't just a couple years later sequel. It's not even like 5 or 6 years. This is 14 years later.
Yeah.
It felt like some kind of acknowledgement of time passing should have happened. I feel the same way about that. It doesn't have to be like 14 years, like you said. It could have just been a couple years later. I would have been okay with like a year later. But you need I felt like you needed some kind of gap there to account.
You know what it is? I think because they came up with so many ideas for the baby that they were just like, no, we have to have it like right after the last one. Isn't it kind of funny that this villain comes up, you know, the mole guy, whatever he was called, and it's like, oh, they're gonna fight him, and they lose. You know, like they technically don't get the guy. So I think it's a combination of that, and I think they just had so many baby jokes that were surprisingly good. I was ready to hate that baby man, but they really made me laugh. So that's the only thing I can figure. But like I said, I can't be that angry because I personally liked it. I thought it was entertaining.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed Incredibles 2 as well. I mean, you can't dispute quality. I mean, it is the jokes work, the story's pretty good. I mean, in some ways it feels a little similar because they just switch Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible with like their roles, which is fine because you get more focus on the different aspects of the family and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting them to be a little bit older at least. And even though that didn't happen, it has like a 93% Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, people did like the movie anyway. So
you know, and that's another thing you just brought up that that I like in this one too, is that in the first one, even though I liked the first one, I thought it was a lot of him and not too much of the family. It wasn't until the last third you got the family, where I like in the second one, it's a lot more of the family, like at their current age and stuff. So that's another sort of advantage of not growing them up, is they can kind of make up for some of the problems in the first one, because if you're gonna have a family of superheroes, focus on the family. You know, I felt like it was mostly following him, so I like that this one, everyone sort of got a fair amount of time, it felt like.
Right. One of the things I was a little confused on why they went down this road was when they erased Tony's memory with Violet and everything, and like her whole storyline there felt just I know it was a retread because literally it was a retread because they erased his mind, but it felt a little too obvious of a route to go down with her. Because we saw her grow up in the first movie. It's like she reached this kind of point where she was comfortable with herself. I feel like she kind of regressed a little bit in the second movie.
The only thing I can think of is that, again, the parent interfering with the kid where they do not want them to interfere. And this is where it gets tricky with a superhero movie and a family, literally about a family movie, is that, well, I mean, that happens all the time, parents interfering where they shouldn't, or the kid gets angry or something like that. But when you work that into a superhero plot where everything needs to be fresh, well, didn't we do this before? Doesn't this tie into the last superhero dilemma? But that wasn't as much like the family dynamic there as much as just what she was going through. So it's tricky juggling those things. That's another reason why I think it would be cool if you grew them up, because then they could encounter new problems.
Right.
But I mean, again, for me, just her reaction seeing him at the restaurant is like, that's one of those things where I had to bite my tongue just the rest of the movie, because I was just thinking back to that and laughing so hard.
Yeah, I mean,
when that came out on Blu-ray, like I paused that scene and looked at it frame by frame. Like, that was so funny. I want to see every frame how they got that big a laugh out of me.
Right. Yeah, the jokes are obviously worked really well in this. Even when she first encounters him when they're in the hallway at school and everything, and her facial expressions. I like, for the edit for this FanScription, I used like a lot from just that scene because she has such a wide range of expressions in that scene too. So yeah, I mean, overall it still works. I mean, like, because she asks him out again at the end of it, and it's still like in the context of the movie, it's still fine. I just would have liked to see, I guess, a little bit different road gone down with her in particular. The Jack stuff is great. I mean, all the jokes are really funny. I agree.
Yeah, and like I said, anytime there's a baby in a movie, it's like, oh Christ, because it slows everything down. They can't talk. They're usually not interesting. And this, I mean, the best scene is a baby fighting with a raccoon. It's like, you wouldn't think that'd be that entertaining, but it's just hilarious.
Right.
And like every scene with him and the fact that they don't know what he can do and they're kind of discovering it as they go on missions. Yeah. Even the idea of just like the two kids bringing the baby along, like they just don't know what to do, so they bring the baby with. Yeah, I don't know. I was really shocked how much, even though there's a lot of repeat, I was shocked how fresh it felt somehow.
Yeah, I think going to Edna Mode's, right? I can't remember. Yeah, going to her place, and like that whole sequence is really funny, where they put the suit on him, and then we see all the different things that go on, and she like breaks down why things are happening. Yeah. I thought that was an interesting angle to go down with the Jack character. With Dash, I guess there's not too much. Was there anything big that happened in this movie with him? I can't even remember right now. He's kind of the one that sort of stayed the same, right?
Yeah, he's just kind of a troublemaker. I mean, he has a problem with his homework. His father helps him out.
Right. Such a sincere he held up the math book.
Yeah. When did they change math?
Yeah, right. That was pretty good.
So, but again, even though there wasn't like a huge arc for him or anything like that, I'm still like, it's about the family. It's about the way they all connect and everything. Again, just seeing him with his father working on homework and stuff like that, it's like, sometimes that's enough. Like those, and he's still, part of the team and helping out and everything. So, yeah, I don't know. It sometimes you don't need much, and what you do put in there, as long as it's the right little bits to put in, that makes an impact. I think it's all right.
Sure. So you said you had a problem with the Screenslaver Villain and kind of the reveal of all that stuff. Was it just the big reveal that bothered you? Because I really like the design and sort of the idea of her powers and stuff.
Well, even the name is great. Yeah. Screenslaver, what a great name, what a great look. As long as you don't get seizures, it's a really cool idea. Right. Yeah, and I was wondering if, if they didn't do it in every animated Disney film now, would I be, that annoyed by it? I was thinking back, because they kind of did it in the first Incredibles. Like, it is a surprise who the villain is. That felt, satisfying. And you find out halfway through the film, and then you're like, okay, well, I can hate this person. I can also kind of laugh at him, too. I can have fun with this. Where this one, you see this cool-looking villain, has a cool voice, cool idea, has what seems like a cool plan, and then it's revealed who, the real villain is, and then it's like, well, okay, so we're never going to see that mask again. We're never going to hear that voice again. And it's just not, I mean, without going too much spoilers, it really is kind of the Dark Knight Rises again for me. I'm like, oh, that was the villain? Cool. That's not what I want to see. It's a superhero movie. I want to see the fantastical, and that's including the heroes and the villains. So I don't know. It wasn't the worst thing for me, but I think coming off of what was a goofy but still fun and menacing villain in the first one, I felt you had an opportunity to at least match that, and then they had to do the traditional twist thing again.
Right, and this is Pixar. It's kind of in a separate category, I think, from most of the other Disney.
I don't know. They're starting to really blend together, though. I don't know.
Well, like nowadays, I guess so. But I mean, they kind of have their own trademarks, like Jack, like all his expressions and the way, like that's all Pixar. Like you saw it with Boo and Monsters Inc. There's like kind of a precedent for like the baby character that comes in there, and a lot of the emotional moments are very different, I think, from the emotional moments in regular Disney films, even nowadays, because they really take their time with the emotional scenes. Like we're talking about with the math book and everything, and when Mr. Incredible kind of like accepts that he just has to help his family, and like the pacing of those scenes are very different from just, I feel like in Frozen or something like that, they're a little bit like, the pacing is just quicker in terms of like, now we got past this emotional part, now we got to get back to the main story.
You know what it is? When an emotional moment hits in a Disney film, there's a song, rightfully so.
Oh, there you go.
When an emotional moment hits in a Pixar film, there will be silence. And there's nothing wrong with either. Both are very, very effective. And I think you're right. I think Pixar, even when there is a song in a Pixar film, you know, like a Randy Newman song or something like that, it's under the soundtrack. Nobody's singing. It's still them just sitting there, you know, thinking about what's happening, where in a Disney film, they'll sing about what they're going through. And both are very effective, but you're right. That's two very different styles.
Right. One of the things when I was editing this, when I was looking back at the original Incredibles movie and this one, obviously 14 years is a long time, so there's big leaps in technology. The animation is just night and day almost.
Right? Yeah, it looks like one is shot at night and one is shot during the day. The colors are just so vibrant.
Right. And I think the Screenslaver Villain definitely lended itself to sort of this more visceral, you know, scenes and action scenes. Some of the action scenes in Incredibles 2 are great.
Yeah.
Like great superhero scenes, period.
Yeah, they're really amazing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I guess one thing I wanted to ask was, why do you think personally it took them so long to make a sequel to this? Because we've heard little reasons here and there, and I know Pixar wanted to keep it original except for Toy Story for a while, but Incredibles was extremely popular when it came out in the mid-2000s. Why don't you think they would have, you know, focused on making a sequel to it maybe in like 2009, 2010, something like that?
I think it's all those, you know, you're talking about, it's a bunch of little reasons. I think it is, they just all combine. I'm sure on top of they want to do original material, not really as many sequels, especially having done Toy Story sequels. I think Brad Bird probably wanted to go and try other films and other things, you know, which he did, some for Disney even. And I think they knew if they didn't have Brad Bird a part of it, people would be kind of pissed off at that, or they would be, even they got a great director to take over. It's like, but this was still his baby. It was still, you know, he wrote and directed and everything. So, yeah, I mean, with a lot of these movies too, I mean, they have to have them like planned so far ahead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there is probably just a mix of those two. They knew they needed Brad Bird, and then they were just saying, you know, let's not do sequels unless we feel like we have to, you know, for the time being. And then they kind of threw that out the window, but that's another story. Even that I can kind of understand.
Right. Didn't they have like a video message at the beginning of the movie saying, "We know you've been asking for a sequel for years."
And what was so great is they're saying, "We know you've been waiting a long time. We've been waiting through, like, so here's a little making of thing." Oh, all right. Well, all right. It's like, now after 14 years, here you go, The Incredibles 2. And they show a short before the movie. And it's like, you're really not helping, guys.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess they had to wait to learn their lesson until Frozen 2 or Frozen and Coco.
Yeah.
The Frozen short in front of that. That's a whole nother story. So did the voices in this, because they are 14 years older, I mean, you don't exactly sound the same 14 years later.
No.
Did any of the voices bug you at all in this? Because I mean, there are certain points when like you hear Mr. Incredible talking, like he sounds a little bit older. Like things that stuck out to me a little bit.
Well, but he was already a little older in the first Incredibles. The one, the woman who does Violet, I mean, that's just her voice. I mean, she always has that voice. So, I mean, that's handy. That's convenient. I'm kind of, did they get a new kid to do Dash, or that couldn't be the same kid?
It couldn't be. I mean, he sounds similar though. So,
and everyone else, I mean, maybe because we know those actors, we've seen them on TV and movies and stuff like that. We kind of know what they sound like. I mean, it's a little different going from like Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, so many years later, because he also took a break from films for a bit. But I don't know. They all seem to. Not only did they sound, I mean, pretty similar. I think they've been playing roles that were very similar. I mean, Craig T. Nelson, he's usually, he was Coach, and then he does The Incredibles, and then he does, was it Modern Family? Is that the show he's on?
Probably.
He's on one of these shows where he's part of a family, and then he has to go and play a guy who's part of a family. It's not too big a leap.
He kind of knows the cadence already and doesn't have to change too much, I guess. Gotcha. So speaking of voices, you made this fanscription, and it is something that we haven't really done before in terms of like totally changing a sequel. I think we did maybe something with Rob doing the Haunted Mansion, but I think that's really the only one that really like completely overhauled it for the most part. When did you get the idea for it?
I don't know, because I was trying to think of because I already did the ones I was kind of interested in doing. I'm like, well, what? Oh, like I know there must be something else. Something was, going back and forth in there, and I was just like, oh yeah, like I always wanted to see an Incredible movie if they got older, and then I was like, but would people dig that? Because Incredibles 2, it was pretty decent. And then I found out a lot of people didn't like that movie. Surprisingly. I was looking at the comments just like, oh man, so much better than what we got. I can't believe they just did the same thing again. It was just like, okay. I mean, I guess I'm not too shocked. I mean, it is a lot of the same, but it's like, I thought they did surprisingly well. But I guess that just shows everyone had the same mindset. Like they wanted them to get older. They wanted to see how they would evolve with age.
Right.
So yeah, and it just kind of went from there. And I like movies and stories that, especially something like this, where it's combining family with the fantastical, and like family dilemmas with superhero dilemmas. So I like the idea of, all right, make them older. One's going to college. One is discovering, kind of his identity. One is sort of in between with the kids and everything. So I kind of like the idea of like, all right, we'll work that into, a superhero story like the first one did.
Mm-hmm. I really like your take on Jack being 6 or 7 years old at this point. And you still kind of kept that innocence that the character is known for, but also aging him up. I thought that was really well done. So kudos on that. And Tamara has a really good little kid voice.
Yeah, she does. Well, what's funny is that her, a lot of times when she does like a little boy voice, she'll try to make it a little scratchy, kind of like that. And then I told her, and when you're playing Jack Tack, the darker version, you gotta make your voice really gravelly. And she's like, I'm already kind of making it gravelly, but I'll do what I can.
Yeah, a lot of layers to that performance.
Her Holly Hunter was also great too.
I know. I was like, man, Tamara's pulling this one out.
And Ayana's Violet was fantastic. Like, everyone really did a good job.
Yeah.
And you really sounded like a 10-year-old boy, man. You just
I know. Well, he's supposed to be what, 15 in this?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't really know what to, like. I don't know what he's.
Honestly, I was just like, just do your voice. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, I tried to like get a little bit higher, but it's hard to predict. Like at 15, you could sound down here. You could sound still like a kid. It's kind of that middle ground. So I did the best I could with it. But
you did good, man.
Thanks. Yeah, your Mr. Incredible was really good as well. The villain, what's it, Wayne or whatever? The guy who was in the original Credibles 2.
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk, is that his name, I think?
I think so. Yeah, Bob
Winston something. I can never say the last name.
Winston. Yeah, right. But yeah, I thought you matched him really well. That kind of enthusiastic, way of him talking. But him being the villain in this one was pretty cool. I liked the angle you took on that. Was that like a right away decision? Like, yeah, he's definitely going to be the villain.
I just knew I didn't want a twist villain anymore, and so and I know if like you have it be the sister, it's like, well, that's just an extra character. You don't need that, so I just wrote her out pretty much. So I'm like, all right, well, like he looks a little bit more, intimidating and stuff like that, in terms of like, he's out there, he's big, he's got the company. Like you can see a dude doing that. And since I didn't want to go for the surprise, I'm like, all right, let's make it kind of so obvious the heroes put it together very early on, because I always hate it when they're like, who could it be? And everybody knows, so I like, just as soon as they see the interview, it's like, he did it, and I like that.
Right. One of the things that I really liked about his character in the original Incredibles 2 was that backstory that they showed with his dad, trying to call for the superheroes after they've been outlawed and they didn't show up. And it kind of caused different reactions in the siblings. I thought that was really smart. We don't have a ton of time to do these FanScription episodes. It's not like they're an hour long or something. Would you still have that origin story for him in there?
I like the idea of, and again, even though I kind of mock they're doing a little too much of it at Disney, I think what they do a lot is they tie into like the emotional element of the individual, but then also of like society as well. And I think especially with Incredibles and superheroes and going into hiding and stuff like that, it's hard not to touch on that, and they do in the second one as well. So I kind of like the idea that there's this switch, that, something that was illegal is suddenly not illegal anymore. And people that either made a living on that or legitimately bought it were like, no, I believe they should be illegal. This is how it should be. The idea that they're suddenly supposed to switch, I think, you could see a bad guy coming from that. Just like, well, we're told one thing and now it's another. And you can see them just not ready to accept that. And they don't want to adapt to the change. And they just, go AWOL. So I kind of like that element in there, because just how would that, just course of history, and American history, all history, anytime there's a change, it usually does not go very smoothly. So I like the idea of like that felt a little bit more like relatable, in that we've seen that, but at the same time, like you said, Incredibles 2, just a difference between siblings, like two people in the same family can look at the exact same thing and come with two different outcomes. Is also really fascinating. So, but again, I didn't want to just do that again, because obviously it was in Incredibles 2 already. So I thought that was kind of a fun angle to play with.
Sure. I really like the dark superhero, the vigilante thing you took on, because we didn't really see that in either of the Incredibles movies too much. Just like these heroes who don't have any powers, and they're kind of Batman-esque in that way, but
I like they literally call themselves the anti-hero.
Right. Oh man, Malcolm was hilarious.
I knew he was the only one that could do that voice. His crackling voice, oh no, I love that voice.
He was great. I was cracking up editing that, like listening to him. So yeah, but just that angle on it, in incorporating Jack into that, or Jack Tack as is known later, I thought was really smart, because that again is not an angle that we saw yet. So that was something new, and incorporating them into that. Would that have been expanded on more? Would you have like given a whole backstory to Lame and everything if this was a real movie, or would you have stuck it just with Jack's storyline?
I would have maybe shown. Well, they come in at the end, but I like the idea of like Jack sort of has this look of like what his parents are doing to him and keeping him out of, the action and everything. And then here are these rebels who are kind of doing the same thing. So he kind of feels like he belongs there, but then he has to work as a team there. I would show more like how they work as a team. And I like the idea of him not using his powers as well. So he has to find other ways. Like he has to learn other things in being a hero. So I'd probably expand more on that if I could. And like you said, though, when I was writing it, I'm like, God, there's so many other things I'd love to dive more into. But it's just it's only these short videos. So I was trying to do it more like a slightly longer pitch,
Yeah. And that's basically what these videos are anyway. But that's what we have the podcast for. We could go into a deeper, background of what your thought process was and what you would have done if it was a real movie, quote unquote. But so one of the things that I really enjoyed at the end, the climax at the amusement park and on the roller coaster, I had a tough time finding some kind of footage to use, and with Batman just a couple minutes.
Man, that was perfect. That was just like when I saw that, I'm like, I wonder where he got that. And you pan over and see the kid on the coaster. I'm like, oh, that's fucking Batman. Okay.
Yeah, right. As soon as I remembered, like, wasn't there an episode To Be a Clown it was from? So the Joker takes over an amusement park, and of course there's a broken down roller coaster and everything. So I was like, yeah, I could use that at least. So So it says you said in the video that you were sick of waiting for this to happen. So this is, I guess, something that you really wanted to happen in either a superhero movie or an animated superhero movie, some kind of big chase on a roller coaster, huh?
I just think everybody, especially every kid, like anytime you go to an amusement park, I mean, you just think of like, man, how cool would it be if like superheroes were fighting on top of there? It's like, yeah, you're going on this loop, but what somebody punches someone on the loop in the coaster and they fall but the coaster catches them on the bottom.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things you can do, and right now effects are just on fire. You can do anything with them, and nobody's done this. I mean, the closest we had was in Spider-Man Homecoming. They land at an amusement park, there's the coaster, like, here we go, and they fight on the fucking sand. Come on, man, one of them can fly. One of them can stick to shit. It's like perfect for a roller coaster. Just on the beach. On the beach.
Yeah, that was definitely more of an original thing too. That's one thing I could say about this one, Doug, is it wasn't, you didn't like take too much from the original Incredibles 2. You really incorporated your original ideas into it. So that was a lot of fun to see. So great job on that, man. Yeah, for sure. So we'll go and transition into our Bill and Ted discussion. So I guess we're going to be talking about all three movies. We'll give you, if we are going to go into spoilers about Face the Music, we'll give you a spoiler before that. So we're just going to be talking about the editorial that I made first. So for me now, I have a history like a lot of people do with Bill and Ted. I grew up watching the movies, and I just love Bogus Journey. I love everything about it. I love how crazy it is. I love that they don't repeat the time travel stuff. I mean, there is still time travel elements in it, but it's not like just a repeated, copy and paste story. And you could argue that in the early 90s, mid 90s, they were doing that a lot with sequels.
Oh, like all the time. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you think about Ghostbusters 2, even the Back to the Future trilogy, which I love. It's like, that's the joke. They're just doing the same thing over and over. And so for Bill and Ted to do something bad, especially Bill and Ted to do something so different. I mean, it's just like, they really could just do the same thing and people would be fine.
Right. And the art of the sets in this, I mean, I compared it kind of like some Tim Burton-esque kind of sets that we saw in like Beetlejuice or Edward Scissorhands. You saw a lot of sort of, I don't know if you could say it's influence, but I mean, it is very similar. Yeah, it's very, even with the lighting. When they go to hell, and I love saying that, when they go to hell, and they go into the different rooms and stuff, I just thought it was so clever how they exaggerated something that you wouldn't think is a big deal. But because Bill and Ted are so pure, they're so like just like good characters on the inside, that this is their hell, is being kissed by their grandma and one time eating a couple of the chocolates out of an Easter basket. That's their big hell.
Did you know, by the way, who played Bill's grandma in that scene?
It was Bill himself. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know that. Everyone in the comments was telling me that. I just told all my friends that because I didn't know, and they were just like, "What? Like none of us knew this." And now that we know, it's like you can see it in the eyes and everything. But that was mind blowing when I found that out.
Yeah, it was so great. I mean, like he's a really good actor. I mean, you could see like the changes in speech pattern, and like he shakes a little bit. Even in the new Bill and Ted movie, he plays an old man Ted. That's one of the things that they visit, or old man Bill, sorry. And he still has it. Like he really pulls off like the old man thing, or old person, I guess, thing really well. Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite scene in the movie is when Bill turns into a little kid and he's at this creepy birthday party and it's this long table and this big dolly shot pushing into his grandma, and all she wants is a kiss from him.
But at the same time, it's both funny, but you also look at it and go, ugh, like it's still not pleasant, and just the way it's shot is. Ugh.
Yeah, because they make it creepy and they make it just like really kind of terrifying, and how she talks and everything. It just, I love that. And who would have thought they would bring the Grim Reaper as a main character? It's a Bill and Ted movie, and he becomes part of the band, and all that stuff. Even his lair, when they do that big transition shot, when we got to fight the Reaper, and it all goes black around them, and they do this big, I guess you could call it a tilt, where they go down, and the transition shot is we're in Death's lair, basically. And I know this is a big homage to the Seventh Seal and everything, and people who are watching these movies, or the audience for these, may not recognize that kind of stuff or those influences, but it doesn't matter. It's not like
it's just funny anyway. I think a lot like Animaniacs did that too. They fight the Reaper, and he's Swedish. You know, he talks like this all the time.
Right.
And I think to a lot of people, it's like, well, it's just silly. Well, that's just silly. That's fun, you know. But if you do a little research, it's like, oh, well, that's from this, you know, famous movie. So I like that. It can kind of work on two levels that way.
Right. And the fact that he is so, like, at first he's kind of spooky, that, you know, he just pops up a little bit, but after they give him the Melvin, I mean, it's just William Sadler. I don't think it's enough credit for just what a great comedic performance he gave in that movie.
I'll say it's weird when you consider that Tales from the Crypt is the more serious performance he gave. A Tales from the Crypt movie.
Right. Did you ever see Rocket Man with Harlan Williams?
No, I know what's about that. I've seen it.
Yeah, he's in that movie, and he's the straight man in that. So it's really the opposite. So he has a lot of range that you could see in there. That movie is like completely inappropriate nowadays. Like if anyone goes back and watch that, there's a lot of things that would not hold up.
Oh, now I have to see it. Now I have to check this out.
Doug, at the end, he sings. He's got the whole world in his hands in different languages, but he's just mocking the languages. He sings in Chinese and all these different languages.
Oh my god!
It's terrible.
But he's like dumb, right? That's like part of the joke,
really
right?
stupid.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
that's
like
the joke, but it would not hold up. It would be.
I gotta see that.
Yeah, you should check it out for that. He's also like farting into like space suits, and they have one connective oxygen tank. So William Sadler's playing the straight man, where it's like, "Did you just fart?" And they're going back and forth about it. And his suit's like expanding and stuff. And there's no one else on Mars. They're walking around. I'm talking too much about, but that's one of the movies I watched when I was a kid.
That's FanScription. Rocket Man.
Rocket Man. I couldn't improve it though. I don't know.
PC Rocket Man.
Right. But that's one of the things I also knew him from, was around the same era, I guess mid-90s that movie came out. But he was just so funny as the Reaper in this. And then Station, what the hell? Two alien scientists from Mars who are in heaven, who they get to build robot versions, good robot versions of themselves, to fight the evil robot versions of themselves that killed them. And then they combine in this weird organic matter to a giant version of an alien. What?
Which is, I mean, that is entirely pointless. You could just make them two little creatures or one big dude. And it's like, no, we have to have this scene where they're two little guys, and then they look at each other and they run towards each other and become one big creature. It's like, why? There's no reason at all, but I kind of love it for that.
Yeah, I know. And that, that's kind of the stuff that I compare in the video to Return to Oz a little bit, because I know Return to Oz is based off several of the Oz books that came out, but it was so different and so weird. And there are certain things like the Gnome King and all that with the makeup and the claymation they used to animate him. It reminded me of that, just like completely taking it a different way from something you already knew. And
making
also
it darker too.
Yeah, making it darker and just making it weird, but in the best way.
Well, when I was a kid, I actually didn't like Bill and Ted 2. Well, part of it is I think I was getting a little too old, so I was just like, oh, this is stupid, not realizing that's part of the fun, that's part of the joke. But the other thing, too, is that I think I was thrown off because it was so dark and so different, and which I liked a lot of dark stuff as a kid, but when you start off with something that's really light, I mean, that was just the first one's so fun and so goofy, and this one did have so many. They were funny, but they were still downer moments. I was like, oh, that put me in a rotten mood. I didn't like that, and now I look back, it's like, and you just don't take it seriously. Of course, it's hilarious, and I think you're right. It's just so original, and I just love sequels that just. It's very original and very different, but it's still Bill and Ted.
Exactly.
It's not like, where did this come from? It's like, no, this still feels like this would be in this odd universe.
Yeah, I think it's the characters themselves. They don't change at all. They're still the exact same characters, and they're just put in these even more bizarre situations. And to see like death bounce off them, literally, it's hilarious. And their sincerity and their like eternal optimism that doesn't get phased even by dying and going to hell is just like, you don't see that a lot where that works, because they can come off as cheesy, but because they're so dopey and like genuinely funny a lot of the time, they pull it off. And their chemistry is great too. I mean, like them going back and forth, it's so good. It's so good. Alex Winter is great. Of course, we know Keanu now has the sense of humor, as you pointed out in the Nostalgia Critic review. But even back then, I mean, he's just got this, like, when he smiles, it's just like, yeah, he's happy.
He can get a laugh just by smiling. I think when one of the time he says, "Shut up, Ted," like all he does is just goes. And it's like, that's all you need. He's perfect. I think he was spending years trying to get away from that persona because it's so in his voice.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy to mock. They tried doing, like Dracula and What You Do About Nothing and, Matrix and so forth, Giant Mnemonic, like all those films. But I don't know. I'm so glad he's embraced it more now. It's not even embrace. He's just sort of like, he's taking it all in. Oh, sometimes I can do drama. Sometimes I can do comedy. I just mix it up. And it's like, good for him because he's really good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. He can pull off a lot of different things. I mean, not a lot of people can jump from John Wick back to doing Bill and Ted successfully, and I think he does. So, with the first movie, with Excellent Adventure, I always liked it. I mean, it's not like I would be bashing it. I got into some back and forth with people about why they really love Excellent Adventure over Bogus Journey. But when I watch them back to back, and I grew up with both of them, so I have both of them, in my brain since I was very young. I was always just like, Excellent Adventure is kind of like the kid version that's more. Sometimes it feels kind of slapdash together because there is a ton of stuff missing from that movie. I think they cut an hour out of the original cut of the movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's so much missing from it. And when you know that and you go back and see, it's like, some stuff is just so thin. I know it's about just getting these historical figures together to, present this big history project for them at the end of the semester. And it's just very light, fun premise. But it's so light sometimes that it just feels like there's nothing there. Like some of the characters that they get, that they bring out of time, like Sigmund Freud or, Billy the Kid, all those historical figures. Like they have jokes that are funny. Like there's jokes that pop up that are still good. Even Napoleon at the water park is still fun and everything. But they don't have real character to them like Grim Reaper does. Like Station, I think, even has more character than all those historical figures combined.
You think so? Oh, see, I got a lot of personality out of that.
I mean, it's not personality. It's just that they're not important to the plot outside of just being Abraham Lincoln or just being.
I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah.
So I guess when I'm bouncing that off of the Grim Reaper and Station, and Joss Ackland in there as Denomalos is kind of lame. I don't really like him in Bogus Journey too much. But at least there's more important characters that Bill and Ted are interacting with that play a bigger part in the story, that have like their own feelings and things that come up. And, even Station doesn't even talk, but he's hilarious. He's great. Yeah. I think that's just one of the things when I go back and watch Excellent Adventure, it just kind of feels a little empty to me. Because I know where we're going and I know it gets so fun and weird, and I'm always just thinking of Bogus Journey when I'm watching Excellent Adventure. So
no, I mean they're very different. I don't know which one. Bogus Journey has a few more clumsy moments, which I know you could say that's part of the charm, like when he's holding Bill's head. I mean, just this blank expression.
I love that.
Close-up. He's like, like little things like that. For me, do add up a little bit. Like, that distracts a tiny bit, but that is kind of what's fun about it too. Like, these are kind of cheaply made. And then when you see parts where they really put the money in, like in Hell and stuff like that, where it's like, wow, all right, like this was really clever, the way they utilize these effects and everything. So, I don't know which one I like better. When I was a kid, I definitely say Excellent Adventure, but now it's kind of tough.
Yeah. One thing that I, upon this latest rewatch, that I noticed was that how little George Carlin is in the movies. He's not really even in it that much. I mean,
the second one especially, man. Like he's just, I'm just teaching, I escape, and then at the very end, just zip, here I am.
he's under the Pam Grier skin, I guess. That's random that she was in the movie too. But I always thought that when I was younger, just remembering them was like he's in the whole movie. Yeah, right? No, he's not. He goes with them to all these different places. No, he doesn't. He's just like bookends of the movies.
Yeah.
I think it would have been great to see him interact with them more. I'm wondering why they kept him out of it, to be honest.
I think there was just already so much going on. I mean, like between getting historical figures and going to heaven and hell and fighting the Reaper and everything. I mean, there's surprising a lot that happens in those movies.
Yeah. Oh, they're
For
definitely.
such a short time span too. I mean, they're not very long films.
No, they're hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer than
Yeah.
that. Yeah, the first one, like I said, they did cut over an hour out of it, so it would be cool to see some of the deleted scenes, shown on a Blu-ray or something. But from what Alex Winter says, I follow him on Twitter, and he posts like some behind-the-scenes things once in a while. It's either they're lost or the film was destroyed or something like that. So we're probably not going to see that stuff. The only things that have survived are just pictures. I guess there's one when they're on like a bus and there was a whole musical number, I guess, that they were rehearsing at Stevie Nicks' house. Random. So they were going to be not fighting the bullies, but they're going to show them interact with I guess the one who says San Dimas High, San Dimas football rocks or whatever. They were supposed to have some scenes with them earlier to show that they were sort of bullied, that didn't survive. So it could have. I mean, I'm sure it's for the best. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say I'm so sick of that subplot in those movies anyway.
Right, and like they mentioned, Bill and Ted aren't really like nerds, or they don't fit
They're just
into
sort of their own thing, yeah.
Right. So I'm glad they didn't stereotype them, because yeah, they're kind of dumb, and they show that off in the history class with the teacher and everything. But yeah, they're not geeks or nerds or like really outcast. They're just their own thing, and I feel like that's more true to life, honestly, with high school. They love to categorize, like in Mean Girls. Oh, these are the popular kids. These are the jock kids. It's like, yeah, that kind of happens, but it's not really like that. At least not in my experience.
I think it would have made it too obvious if they went that route. What I like about the way they have them is that you can look at these two, dumb Valley boys, and you can either be like, oh, aren't they nice? Or, oh my God, this is our future, holy smokes. And you can kind of take either of those out of it, where I feel like if you put in the bullies, it's like, no, they're the dorks, they don't fit in, they don't. And it's like, but you can look at them now and be like, was this just supposed to be like the entire generation? Or is this just the two of them? Are they popular? Are they geeks? Are they like, you don't really know? Which I like. I like that they leave that vague, so you can sort of get whatever you want out of it.
Right. Have you watched The Good Place?
Yeah.
Have you seen it all? You've seen the characters and stuff?
I know the characters.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think I got to like third or fourth season, something like that.
Gotcha. The Jason character in that is kind of the stereotypical dumb guy.
Yeah.
The sincere dumb guy. In that show, I feel like you can compare them to Bill and Ted, because I think in The Good Place, he's a little too dumb. Because there's points where he's just like the shtick gets old, and maybe that's also a part of it being a long series that you see like way more content. I don't know how that would turn out in a Bill and Ted really dedicated series, because I know they did have spin-offs with different actors and stuff. But yeah, I just think the dumb characteristic, or the dumb stereotype, is done perfectly in the Bill and Ted movies, where I think I love The Good Place, but I do think Jason is the weak part in that. When you make someone too dumb, it becomes kind of annoying after a while.
You have to be bizarrely smart to write hilariously dumb. It's trickier than it sounds.
Yeah, you're right.
And when you get it down, a good example of that, I look at early Homer Simpson and later Homer Simpson. I mean, it's like one is so funny and so likable, and the other you're just like, shut up, I can't take you. So I think it's one of those things where it's like there is a balance to it.
Yeah, it's a fine line for sure. So I mean, ending with A Bogus Journey as well, with God Gave Rock and Roll to You, the Kiss cover, it's so good. I love the montage at the end of all the newspaper articles and everything. It's just like a perfect ending. I know that the climax, they ran out of money. I guess there was supposed to be more stuff happening there at the end.
Did you ever read the comic book version?
No, I didn't.
I read that when it came out, and it was actually so good they just gave them their own series, because the artwork was really good, and they expanded on what the climax was supposed to be, and it was weird. Like, the creatures from hell come back, only they're like beefier and bigger. There was like Bill and Ted originally, like the robots originally like just run out the wall, just run through the wall, and the good robots, and then like Bill and Ted are killed again, but because they beat death so many times, he's like, oh yeah, I guess you get a few extra lives. So then he brings them back to life. So there was a little bit more if they're going by the comic book version.
Sure. I have seen some pictures behind the scenes and some video footage that, yeah, the hell creatures, like the things that scare them, like Bill's grandmother and the Easter Bunny, were supposed to come back when they were driving to the venue in the van.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I saw some of the designs and stuff. I was like, that looked pretty cool. I mean, I would have been down for at least some deleted scenes seeing it, but
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the time with the Bill and Ted movies, from what I've heard, they would be in the middle of shooting something and they would decide it's not working in the middle of it and abandon that scene or expand it. Like with the original climax was going to be in Excellent Adventure, I'm talking about, was going to be in the classroom. Was just going to be all the historical figures in the classroom writing stuff on the chalkboard. In the middle of shooting that, they were like, this is not working. We need something a little bit bigger. And that's when they moved it to the auditorium. So they do that a lot, either from running out of money or from just, discovering that something just not working. I don't know if I would have the courage to do that as the director or writer. You're in the middle of shooting this bigger scene or something and just be like, man, I don't think so. I think we're just going to abandon this or
It's
cut
weird.
it out.
Well, and here's the thing too. You can find out in editing. There's lots of times I've shot something. I'm like, oh, this is weird.
When you get there,
then maybe I'll see how I fix it editing. But then when you see it edited together, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? This is hilarious. And vice versa. You think something is so great on set, and then you get to editing, you're like, oh no. I mean, so it's, yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, it'd be tricky to abandon something like that. But if it's also costing a lot of money, and you're like, I was always a little iffy about this anyway, like, I can see, nixing it at that point.
Right. And Bogus Journey, it made money, but it wasn't like a gigantic success or anything like that. But it does have a cult following. Both these movies do now. So
yeah.
It was great to have these for so long too, because we talk about Back to the Future and other time travel movies that are great, and Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies, period. These are just more light, and I like that they're kind of not as big. They're kind of like, you kind of got to watch them to really understand why they're so beloved by like a smaller section of people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the cool, lesser known brother.
Back to the Future's lesser known sibling.
Yeah, but his work's really good.
Yeah.
So we can get into talking about Bill and Ted Face the Music a little bit. We'll go into non-spoiler territory, and then we'll talk about spoilers. I'll give you a warning before that, so you can tune out just in case. I just watched it this afternoon on demand, and I wanted to support it in theaters, but it's so spotty with what's open right now, and I'm still a little weary of going to theaters yet. So
me too,
yeah, I really, really want to, but it's like, I don't know if I should or not. So
I hear even if you did go to a theater, it's like, I want to see with a crowd. It's still not going to be with a crowd.
Right, it's going to be very spread out.
When Brad went to see a movie, and he said it was just like empty. He's like, it's safer, going there than a restaurant even.
Yeah, right. So I did watch it at home. It played well at home. I actually enjoyed it. I don't think it would have been anything too much grander on a big screen, even though I would have liked to support it on a big screen. I still gave $20 for this because that's what you got to pay to watch it at home now. But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I thought that they followed things up very well. I thought that the characters were still true to themselves while aging quite a bit and incorporating new things. I love the daughters. I love the premise in general of it. There are things that towards the end, I think it kind of fell apart a little bit.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah. And the robot character, there's a robot character that there's in a couple of the previews that is kind of a Terminator, sort of. He was cool at first.
You know what it is? I think that's one of those times where I bet on paper he was very funny, and those lines were very funny. But something about on set, they just couldn't get the timing down or the delivery or whatever. And anytime he showed up, we're like, all right, we're really done with this guy.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, I did really like it. I thought it was worth making. I didn't think it like embarrassed the franchise or anything like that. It's still made on a relatively low budget, you could tell. I mean, there's still bigger effects, and we even have kind of a sky beam a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
But it's still done original enough where the characters make it, and even the new incorporations of the daughters and everything were new enough where it was still fun. So I said I liked 85% of it. So it's still a positive outlook on it, I think.
Yeah, no, I actually, when it started, especially the wedding, and when you see who's getting married to who, I am just like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like I didn't
right.
know from the trailer, and then I'm like, oh man, and then it just kept getting funnier and
Yeah,
funnier and
yeah,
smarter and smarter. I'm like, oh my god, this is it. And then when it gets to the stuff that you think is just gonna be the funniest, I mean, not giving anything away, but like when
right.
they go to hell and the big climax and stuff like that, you think, oh well, this just writes itself. It's got to be amazing, and that's weirdly where it starts to lose laughs.
Yeah,
And it gets a little muddled in there. And we watched it with a small group. I mean, they're all quarantined and stuff, but we watched and we were laughing so hard. We're talking about why that joke was so great and stuff like that, and quoting the lines even while watching it.
yeah,
And then when you got to the last third, it was more quiet. Like we
yeah.
laugh every once in a while, but we're just like, please don't let it crash and burn in the ending, and it doesn't do that.
No.
But it is not nearly as strong as that first 2/3.
Right. I think it could have benefited from another maybe 10 minutes. I know you want to keep these films tight. I mean, all the Bill and Ted movies are about 90 minutes, but I think it feels a little rushed.
It just stops, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. It just stops. Like
Right.
again, we were just sort of sitting there in silence. Like, are we really watching the credits right now? Like, is that really like the end?
Mhm.
Like, this is most likely the final Bill and Ted movie. It's just
Yeah.
like that. That's how quickly you're gonna, just put the kibosh on that.
Yeah. But leading up to that, it was just like a great build upon build of like the different. That we've seen this in the trailers. This isn't a spoiler. They're kind of seeing different versions of themselves. I mean, everyone's seen the big jacked prison versions of them, which are hilarious. I love that scene too.
Now, all of those, I was afraid those were like gonna be really lame or kind of gimmicky or whatever, but they were all very funny. And that's probably the best part of the film, and that's a good half of the movie.
Yeah.
Is them just going to their future selves,
Mm.
and not for like the best of means. It's like, yes, to save humanity, but they're essentially gonna steal someone else's work, even if it's their own.
Yeah, right. How could it be stealing? We're stealing from ourselves, dude. I love that line. It's so good. But yeah, I mean, there's things that when Death shows back up and everything, it's funny. William Sadler still has the accent like down pat, and his timing is still great. I think the newest thing that they incorporated into it, sort of giving because it's very much like a forked sort of storyline with we're following Bill and Ted doing their thing, and then the daughters doing their own thing. And I thought the stuff with the daughters worked really well too, in terms of something new that's familiar. I thought that like their chemistry was really good. The girl who plays Ted's daughter, so Billy, I guess, I thought she was great. I thought she had.
I thought that everyone likes
both of them
one
were really
more
good
than the other.
Yeah.
I thought they were both, because I kept going back and forth looking at both their expressions in every scene, and both of them are on point to me. I think there's always going to be one that makes people laugh more than the other, but I thought they were both just so good.
Yeah, they were great by themselves. They were great bouncing off each other, and they were great as Bill and Ted's daughters. They really balanced those performances really well. Billy, though, the girl with the dark hair, she had something about her movement, her like motor skills or something. I don't know, that were just really like engaging, and like it really felt like Ted.
Yeah.
Like how she was talking, but
also
also
part of it is. I think part of it could be because her hair almost looks exactly like Ted's, and and then the other one, I don't think she had a shorter haircut. I think she had longer hair too. So I think that added more to the impression of Ted. So when she goes, like that, the hair flies with it.
Yeah.
So I think that adds a lot. I thought both were very, very funny, and I think just that scene of Hendrix jamming with Mozart. I mean, there's no words there, but it's just that, man, this is both really funny and really awesome at the same time. Like, this is just like, you see a scene like that, you're just like, movies, man, that's what movies can do, like just for fun. And I just think that's like one of the coolest scenes.
Yeah, definitely. The girl who plays Thea, I guess Bill's daughter. That's Samara Weaving. So I've seen her in what's that horror movie that came out? I'm losing the name of the dang movie. Darn, I keep thinking Get Out because it kind of sounds like Get Out. But she's
Us, Midsummer, Hereditary.
No, it was more of a jokey horror movie. Like she was getting married to this guy. Ready or Not.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's her. Okay.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah, I love that movie.
That movie's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going into it like this could be pretty fun, and I came out of it loving it. And she's like the centerpiece of that. She's the bride in it. She is just so good in that movie.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit familiar with her work before going into this, and yeah, she did really well too. So the newer aspects to it, even Catherine Shaw, is that the name of
Kristen Shaw.
Kristen Shaw. Yeah, I thought she's very funny too, but in like a way you wouldn't expect a lot of the time, like her personality and things like Last Man on Earth. I'm familiar with. I saw that whole show. She wasn't given like the opportunity to be laugh out loud funny in this, but just
that bothered me because this is the first movie I saw where I didn't get a laugh out of her. Though granted, she wasn't given, like you said, she's kind of like Rufus in the original. She's supposed to be sort of the straight person, but it's like, you got Christian Shaw though. Come on, like make her funny.
Right. There's some parts that like got a little laugh out of me, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's a waste because there is a lot going on in the movie, but
she's fine, but I don't know. It's like getting Robin Williams for a role where he doesn't tell that many jokes. It's like, but it's Robin Williams,
right? I mean, it was playing like that kind of character, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's an ensemble piece. It's not just focused on Bill and Ted. There's definitely a lot more moving pieces in this that they had to juggle. And from that aspect of things, from a screenwriting perspective, it was really well done with like throwing all these things up in the air and still keeping everything interesting. And I really did like the pacing of it. Jumping back and forth really kept you interested in all the different things that were going on.
Well, and a lot of it actually comes together at the end. That's what I was like, well, how is this all going to click at the end here? Because I mean, it was one of those films where I'm legit not putting together how this is all going to work. Start crossing my fingers. Please work. I don't want this all to be botched by the ending. And it's really not, even though the third act is definitely the weakest part. It's not botched. It's still, you get there, it's like, all right, no, that worked.
Right.
That actually, equals out okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, overall we both liked it. I think it's safe to say. It's a worthy finale, I think, to the series, and it's a good enough idea to have made it, I think.
So, yes, the good way of putting it.
Right. So we'll go into a little bit of spoilers. This is the spoiler warning, okay? If you're watching or listening, this is the spoiler warning. This movie just came out. I know people can't go to theaters. It is on demand for $20 if you want to watch it. I would suggest it if you're a Bill and Ted fan. Spoilers, okay? Okay. So the ending, I don't like when movies feel like switch, flip a switch and it's like, oh, it's all about them the whole, like, no, it wasn't. It was not all about the daughters.
Oh, that's so funny. See, I thought what you were going to say, what I thought people were going to get really pissed about, and nobody seems to mind, is that they make it so that, no, it was the daughters the whole time. I thought people would go insane over that. No, it wasn't Bill and Ted that actually, like, brought the world together. It was the daughters, but they work around it by having where it's like, well, no, they're still doing this thing where they're going everywhere. The game does that. They play the final note. They're the ones that come up with the idea. So it's like, they're still technically correct, So I think that's the workaround everybody was okay with.
Right. That's what I was thinking, was like that they said that. They made it a big deal about, oh, Preston Logan. It's not us, dude. It's them. But then they don't fully commit to that because, like you said, I mean, Bill and Ted are still leading the charge on that. Because they even had a line like, we're supposed to be backing them up. But they don't back, they're leading, playing the guitar. That's what saves everything still. So it's like,
well, no, but they have the idea of like how to actually make the music and when people play and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're organizing it basically.
Yeah, but to me, it's like you had two movies just built, like this is literally the foundation of this future, and it's not like, oh, there's a clever misinterpretation. It's like, no, you see them, in the future everywhere, doing the thing, playing the music and stuff like that. So I'm just like, wait, that doesn't make sense. But like I said, it balances out just enough. And I do like that it was kind of a family thing. I like it's also kind of passing on the torch without sequel baiting, necessarily. So it definitely doesn't sequel bait. It just stops, man.
Right.
It's just like, and that's how it happened. Boom, that's it.
Right. Even the post-credit scene is just like them shredding.
Yeah,
for
it's
like
totally pointless.
Yeah, I know. I was like, why do that? Okay. Fun, I guess. Yeah, I mean that was kind of the biggest problem I had with it, is just it just combines too quickly, and the fact that they felt the need to be like, oh, it was all them all along. And then also while the daughters are setting up the band, they're traveling throughout time to distribute instruments so they could hit the same notes at the same time. I was like, what? Why? Like, why did you need that?
I like that because it's
really
because it's literal a harmony. It's both the music harmony and then what actually brought everyone together. It was not necessarily the song. I think because they know there's no song they can play that's going to bring the world together, and they have to do a third movie. So it's like, well, how do you do this and have like a conclusion and stuff like that? So I think they had where it's like, well, no, they push the infinity button, they go, everybody gets instruments, everybody, literally plays a part in this giant song, all points of time, every part of the earth and stuff like that. And it's silly, it's ridiculous, but I kind of like that. Like, everyone comes together just to play this song. It doesn't even matter if the song's that good, which actually I thought the song was okay.
I did too, yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I'd rather not know that, but it's kind of like Batman Begins. If we're going to do this, let's at least, kind of go all the way and make it somewhat, creative and believable. Well, okay, not believable, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Sticking to what the movies are kind of about. So I dug that all right. Like, it worked just enough for me.
Sure. I understand the subtext of it because it's like literally everyone is in harmony for a moment. Yeah. So like, I understand. I just felt a little out of place for when all that was happening. They go on a whole separate mini adventure really quick. I was just kind of like, I guess just pacing wise is a little odd to me.
Yeah, you're right. Just suddenly, like, it even kind of took me a second to realize, oh, they went to everywhere in time to do this. All right, because it just happened so fast.
Yeah.
You just cut to these, obvious green screen, shots of like Washington and stuff, playing the music.
Right. So I mean, that part didn't ruin it. Nothing ruined the movie for me.
No.
But yeah. What did you think of Kid Cudi?
I thought that's an example of a running joke actually coming through at the end, in my opinion. Because at first I'm like, oh, I'm not buying this, man. No. And even if someone's not a very good actor, it's like sometimes that can work too. And I'm just like, I'm not buying this, man. Oh, he knows how to time travel. It's a funny idea, but man, he can't act. And then by the final time he was talking about it, I'm like, all right, I'm giving into the Stockholm. This is really funny. By the final time, I finally gave into it. I'm like, all right, because they've just done it so many times, it won me over.
Right. He's just it's such a random musician to throw in there.
I like that he's not, they're like, well, you need the greatest musicians in the world. He's not one of the greatest musicians in that band. I like that. They're like, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
Like it's still going to be Mozart and Hendrix, it's whatever that caveman was.
Yeah, right.
So I like that they kept their distance with that, but whatever, have a musician in there and have him weirdly knowledgeable about time travel.
Sure. I did I did love just them going throughout to collect, because it is kind of a retread of the first movie, but yeah, collecting those historical figures, like it was all funny, like bringing Louis Armstrong back to interact with Jimi Hendrix and like all that stuff. I mean, it's funny in the way that the first movie is funny.
Yeah, they treat it kind of seriously. All the actors are like, okay, I'm really gonna be Jimi Hendrix. I'm really gonna be Louis Armstrong. They commit to it. I think that's the other thing that let me down a touch, is that because Bogus Journey was so original and so not repeating anything, and this third film does kind of combine the first two films together, with the exception of them constantly going to the future, which even then is time travel, but just seeing themselves kind of get worse and worse. That's a very original idea.
Yeah.
But again, they worked out just enough where I'm like, all right, I like these people a lot. If anything, it's the final film, so doesn't it make sense to be a combination of the two? All right. But I really wanted to see something even more wild in terms of what you can do with the story, because the second one was so wild. But then again, how do you top heaven and hell?
I don't know.
I don't know how you do that.
I know. One of the things that kind of bothered me when everyone goes to hell. I mean,
why do they go to hell?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because in Bogus Journey, they're sent to hell by that seance thing. Because Bill and Ted wouldn't go to hell, but when they die, everyone goes to hell. What? Jimi Hendrix is in hell? What? Mozart's in hell?
I thought maybe if they had like a joke, like a reveal of why everybody is there, and they reveal like some terrible thing that all of them did. Like maybe that'd be funny, or maybe like a technicality why they go to hell or something. But and maybe the Reaper brought him there because he recognized, it's like there's something you can do, but no, there was never an explanation.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange because it's like all this optimistic series, and of course Bill and Ted wouldn't go to hell if they weren't sent there directly. So it's like, what? Why is everyone in hell? I was kind of let down by that. We got to talk about the Dennis robot, Dennis Caleb McCoy, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
So at first it was like, okay, it's cool that they made a full suit for this guy. I was like, that's a good idea to have like a little person chasing them. You know what I mean? Or a little, plot, a ticking time bomb, whatever you want to call it, of like another element to it to sort of up the urgency. And I thought that was fine, and thought when he had like remorse for shooting people on accident, I was like, that's pretty funny because he's like very serious. And then they start to go into the dentist thing. I was like, that's kind of funny. And he goes to hell and everything, and he keeps going. I was like, it's funny. And then they keep going. It's like, I don't like this anymore.
No, and I know the mindset they're coming from. They're coming, again, we were talking about Pixar earlier. I think they wanted to take like this little joke and it turns into a running joke. And then they're like, okay, this is going to be like our big thing that everyone's going to be quoting. They're going to be like, oh man, they took that joke and really turned into something big. And it never left the runway, like it's on there. You got the plane there and it's going, but just something was wrong with the pilot or the gas or something. Just something didn't quite click, and they couldn't quite figure it out in the editing or on set, or it just never quite clicked together.
Right. It was funny at first. I legitimately was laughing at it.
When he does like the little oh no, like that's why I feel so bad. I don't. My name is Dennis, and I even like when he starts to make a speech and they applaud to cut him off. It's just so awkward.
Good job, Dennis.
But at some point, then they're like, they were really banking on people just finding that funny over and over and over, and like everyone I've talked to is like, yeah, it was funny at first.
Right, exactly. It's one of those things that you repeat so much where it's funny at first, it's not funny, it comes back around to being funny again, but they didn't complete the circle.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Like with the dude, I forgot his name, the musician who knew all about time travel, Kid
Cudi.
Yeah, Kid Cudi. Yeah, like that. That didn't even start off like that funny, but then they just kept going like, all right, you complete the circle, you did. And that one, you're right. It's like they didn't quite make the circle. Maybe they got about halfway, but definitely didn't complete it.
No. And that's, I guess, an example of one of the newer things that didn't quite work, but most of the newer things did. And again, like the ending, I just wish there was just a little bit more, just an
epilogue of some kind.
Right, yeah. Either spending those 5 or 10 minutes building up to the performance, or afterwards would have been nice.
There must have been one shot, and then they scrapped it for some reason, like there, because that was so abrupt. Like I feel like there must have been an ending there, and at the last minute, like they're like, no, yank it, just stop at save the world, and we're done.
Maybe because that's how the second one ended, was like, they're playing and then just they have the montage of the newspapers. I don't know. They wanted to match.
Even though there's kind of an epilogue, it shows that they've, gone on, they've learned how to play, they have children, and then you even see, all the newspapers and stuff. So, I mean, but is that like just because the timeline gets screwed up? Did that all not happen?
No, they do mention that stuff did happen, that they played the Grand Canyon, that death broke up with them, all that stuff that happened in the montages still happens in the movie. So I'm glad that's one thing I was worried about. It was like, I thought they saved the world already. I thought they did this.
Okay, but, so they were, because that kind of confused me too. I was like, okay, so did that happen, but then the timeline got screwed up, or did all that happen, but the world was still not in peace?
It was still not saved. So they started off.
That kind of makes it even funnier. Like they do all these amazing things, and yet they're still playing in a shitty bar.
That's kind of the whole thing, is that they were huge, the biggest band in the world, and then they just they kept putting out the song that was supposed to save reality or whatever, and then it didn't happen. They just keep going downhill. So, but overall, I mean, there's not really too much else spoiler-wise to say about it. It's really just the ending that just feels a little too rushed, and there's not enough of a. It's satisfying enough, but there's not quite enough of, like you said, an epilogue or just something to wrap it up at the end. But overall, I liked it. I am glad it was made. I've been following this for, I want to say 6 or 7 years since they announced that they're trying to make it, because they were trying to make this for a long time. I think since 2010, the writers had the idea for it, and they brought back on Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, and they were down to do it. But it took, I mean, Bill and Ted's a name value. People know what Bill and Ted is, even if they haven't seen the movie. So it is a little surprising that it took this long to get it made.
Yeah, but it's not a guaranteed hit either. I mean, especially thinking back to 10 years ago, like, yeah, Reeves had The Matrix, but it's like, after that, his name wasn't like, well, if he's in a movie, it's going to be a hit. Like, it wasn't that solid. And honestly, like, I feel like everyone else in the movie, it's like nobody else in the movie would be like, hey, we got to go to see that person, kind of thing. So it's not surprising. It's also not surprising that it did have such a small budget because of that. And it would have been nice to see a little less CG and more of like a couple more sets, or at least if there's going to be CG, be a little bit more creative with it. Right. But I get it. Again, low budget, you can't get the best of everything. But I'm with you. It feels like even though it's not most excellent, it's just excellent enough.
Just excellent enough. It's not bogus. So
yes.
Yeah. Good stuff all around. I think that's going to wrap it up here. We talked about a lot of stuff, going over 71 minutes now. Wow.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted, man, you gotta.
I know. We had a lot to discuss.
So many layers to Bill and Ted.
I know. There is a lot of layers to Bill and Ted. Very sincere character. Yeah, in terms of what's going on in September, I've been working on this thing for October, which is going to be this month-long thing like Batman again, and we'll announce that pretty soon. But I've been hard at work on that. So we'll at least get one episode out. It's probably going to be Rob writing something. So we'll definitely be back here at the end of next month or end of September with an episode of the FanScription podcast. So make sure you tune in for that. Doug, you can check out his review of Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is up on here now, just in case you haven't seen it. Any last thoughts on Incredibles or anything like that?
Party on, dudes! Sorry, I'm still on Bill and Ted.
Be excellent to each other, everyone.
Yes.
We'll talk to you later.